Hi, I'm Bill Sproul. The Keystone Mountain Lakes Regional Council of Carpenters is committed to educating the public about critical economic issues that affect their daily lives. That is why we are proud to support important programming produced by the Caucus Educational Corporation.
This special edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Tisch WNET studios at Lincoln Center. Funding has been provided by Rowan University, educating New Jersey leaders, partnering with New Jersey businesses, transforming New Jersey's future. Atlantic Health System, building healthier communities. New Jersey Sharing Network, dedicated to saving lives through organ and tissue donation. Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey. Keystone Mountain Lakes Regional Council of Carpenters. Your future is in our building. New Jersey Resources. And by Wells Fargo. Promotional support provided by ROINJ, informing and connecting businesses in New Jersey. And by NJ.com, small news, big news, true Jersey.
This is One-on-One. I'm an equal American just like you are.
The jobs of tomorrow are not the jobs of yesterday.
Look at this. You got this?
Here it is, man. Look at that.
Life without dance is boring.
I don't care how good you are or how good you think you are, there is always something to learn.
Do you enjoy talking politics?
No.
People call me because they feel nobody's paying attention.
Our culture, I don't think, has ever been tested the way it's being tested right now.
Such a good question. High five.
For 33 years, across more than 1,500 episodes, Firing Line provided a platform for an exchange of opinion. Welcome to Firing Line, Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, Caitlyn Jenner, Governor John Kasich, Madame Christine Lagarde, Speaker Paul Ryan. Our mission is to renew the Firing Line tradition for a new generation and engage new voices and viewers alike in a debate about the America we want to create in the 21st century.
That's Firing Line. We have the host right here. She is, in fact, Margaret Hoover, host of Firing Line with Margaret Hoover on PBS. Hey.
Hi.
Welcome to the PBS family.
Thank you so much.
Is this not the greatest broadcast network around?
It is a total, really, truly an honor. I mean, all of us grew up with PBS, especially, I mean, beginning, this is the most brilliant marketing strategy ever. Get them while they're young. Sesame Street, Mr. Rogers.
But
right?
you got to keep them with compelling programming.
Yes, you do. And so that's what you do. That's what I'm trying to do. And it's really, actually, it's like the honor of a lifetime to be able to be part of this.
Well, for those of us who are old enough to remember William F. Buckley, 66 to 99, he did Firing Line. He had his own unique style, fair to say?
Totally fair to say. Do you know he was the longest running television host in television history, more than Johnny Carson. And now you're at 30 years?
You were just about at 30 years.
So, you know, you could beat him.
Do I just better than Buckley?
You dress. I don't think he thought his dress was the distinguishing feature.
I know I'm not as
his
smart
performance.
as Buckley. How smart was William F. Buckley?
William Buckley was incredibly
like scary smart.
He was smart, but the thing that he was best at was his locution. He would use multisyllabic words over and over and over again that forced everybody to sit and watch his show before you could watch with multiple screens with a dictionary in your lap and a thesaurus. So you could try to figure out what he was saying. I mean, that was the signature riff about Buckley, is his choice in words and his mastery of the English language, both with the pen and with his tongue.
And a conservative intellectual who made people think, whether they agreed with him or not. And you take on the mantle of this show with your own brand, your own style, your own approach. You identify as a quote-unquote conservative. You're clearly an intellectual. But it's different times. Very different. So let's put this right out there. The Donald Trump brand of quote-unquote conservatism, Republican conservatism, you're shaking your head as I speak, and the Margaret Hoover brand, not that you were here on public broadcasting to express your point of view, but you have been a commentator before, and we do know your track record. Different?
100% different. I mean, they're even different than William F. Buckley's brand of conservatism.
Absolutely.
William F. Buckley Jr. really was one of the, I would say he was the most prominent public intellectual of the modern American conservative movement, certainly as a television personality because of Firing Line.
That's right.
And the conservative movement, when it started, and it's in the 1950s, around the formation of National Review, the magazine that he founded,
That's right.
embodied a series of ideas. But it was basically this group of people that had totally different ideas that formed together in a coalition, and there were three parts. Reagan sort of loosely referred to them as three pillars of the or three legs of the stool. But the early modern American conservative movement in the 50s and 60s was economic libertarians,
right,
anti-communists, and traditionalists, but not, they didn't, I mean, it was even before Roe v. Wade. These were people who thought that organized society was becoming too secular, and they thought that there was a place for religion, whatever religion it was, to have a place in the public square, and that's why the prayer and school fights
right,
sort of became part of the public
Buckley
policy
happened to
debate
be
of the
Catholic.
conservative. He was very Catholic.
Happened
He was
very
like an Orthodox Catholic.
An Orthodox Catholic.
He was quite observant. He really was. I mean, most Catholics these days are pro-life, pro-choice rather, not pro-life.
That's right.
Buckley was a really traditional Catholic. That is incredibly different than the current conservative movement that Donald Trump has really co-opted.
Sorry for interrupting, Margaret. Is Donald Trump the Republican/conservative party thing today? Is he it?
I mean, the conservative movement has become something very different than it was under Buckley. With Buckley, it was an intellectual movement, and then, under Reagan and then later Bush in the 90s and 2000s, it has become something broader than just an intellectual movement, right? There's a grassroots movement that is very big. It's sort of grassroots and the intellectual sphere. What's happened now is there is a conservative architecture in Washington, D.C. that Paul Ryan not so endearingly calls the conservative industrial complex.
What does that mean?
And it means that there have been entities that have now been in place for decades that sort of support quote-unquote conservative causes, whoever the president is. And I think, in my view, and I think Buckley would argue this too, that they've become untethered from some of those original ideas that define the modern American conservative movement that Buckley espoused. So you don't see conservatives in Washington, D.C. anymore arguing for debt and deficits and fiscal responsibility. Those two ideas have become totally delinked. So I think there's a really good argument that the conservative movement today that Donald Trump, pretends to put his arms around, I think pretends to put his arms around, I'm going to anger some people for saying that, is very disconnected.
How did he co-opt it?
The modern conservative
How did Donald
movement.
Trump,
Because he
with his
co-opted the
past...
Republican Party.
Well, hold on one second, Margaret. Respectfully, with his track record of things that he had said over the years, including that Hillary Clinton got a royal deal, she would have been a good candidate at the time. Bill Clinton was unfairly persecuted, prosecuted, impeached. He didn't think it was a particularly serious offense. And the fact that he funded Democrats all those years who were running for office, and then he's the leader of the Republican Party / he's a conservative. Listen, that's not my opinion. Those are facts. And I'm curious as to, from your view, and by the way, you call yourself an exiled, if you will?
I'm a Republican in exile.
Okay. How did he, and I don't even know if the word is co-opt.
He owns it now. I mean, he owns it.
He owns it.
Here's
He's not even renting it. He owns it.
Here's what happened, though. I mean, and this is something that, beware the Democrats coming in 2020 when you have 20 people on the stage or more fighting for that nomination. What happened in the Republican Party is Donald Trump never won a plurality. He never won a majority of votes.
Sure.
He never won a majority of the votes. But the majority of Republican primary voters split their votes between everybody else. And so the ideas that the conservative movement has always espoused, all the other candidates were fighting over, and he occupied this different lane. And then over time, it ended up getting
What's that lane?
Describe
that lane.
I think it's economic populism. I think it's people who are disaffected with the current status. I think there was a real group of Republicans and Republican primary voters who were quite concerned as it whittled down to Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, Jeb Bush. They're concerned about another Bush. They're concerned about Ted Cruz. Everybody had a strong opinion. And by the way, it was a circular firing squad on the conservative side. Everybody shot everybody else thinking Donald Trump wasn't a serious candidate.
But here's the part that was always confusing to me, is Ronald Reagan was able to attract the disaffected, disproportionately white working class voters in key states, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio, et cetera, without calling people names, without demonizing others, without saying the most horrific, disrespectful, and disgusting things about women and laughing about it. So I'm confused as to how much of it was, I love that Donald Trump says what he thinks versus ideologically he represents me. Or am I making too much of this?
I sometimes I think you and I want to think that there's a lot more about the ideas and the policies behind a candidate. And in the case of Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton, there was, amongst the Republican primary base, amongst a lot of people, just a lot of dislike for Hillary Clinton, and a lot of dislike for Washington, and a lot of dislike for the establishment. And for a lot of people, they were throwing their lot into, well, how bad can he do? Like, let's mix it up.
Because, quote, I don't like her.
I don't like her. That was a lot of it, certainly. But then there was also a lot of like, you know, if Donald Trump is good at anything, he is incredibly good at marketing, right? Drain the swamp, throw the crooks out. Let's mix it up. And I think people took a calculated risk, thinking, well, maybe he can do something different because, you know, these other people have all been in power for a really long time, and look at where we are. And there's a lot of hurt.
And by the way, we should make it clear that we are taping at the end of 2018. We do not know exactly what's going to happen as it relates to different investigations going on right now, reports that may be coming out. If you're predicting, does Donald Trump serve out this full term?
I think he does. I think he should, as long as there's not, you know, some sort of legal process, right? Donald Trump shouldn't be removed through any other process than a totally legal and constitutional process. And I think the way we change presidents in this country is by voting for another president or voting somebody out or in again. That's the best way to do it.
Do you see a Republican running against? I'm sorry, make your point. I apologize for interrupting.
I mean, there's a real question about whether Donald Trump will want to run again, right? Donald Trump, of course, thinks he's going to run again. And this is a theory that is being banted about, maybe by people who, on the Republican side, hope that somebody else can come in and save the party or take it back to its original roots or in a better course or direction. But there is this real question about whether Donald Trump is going to be able to weather the storm of a Democratic Congress that has him under investigation, members of his family being called up to testify before Democratic intelligence committees, being able to withstand 20 candidates single-handedly putting their fire on him unilaterally, and the criticism over and over and over again may just be a very different level of fire than he's willing to endure for another 2 years or another 4 years.
Before I let you out of here, you're the head of a nonprofit that's making a difference in the lives of a lot of people who have suffered for too long for no good reason. Describe it.
Thanks. It's American Unity Fund, and we're an advocacy organization. And what we do is we work with Republican and conservative legislators across the country to help secure LGBT equality and freedom. And now that seems like it's a cause for a dinner party joke, right? You're working with Republicans to help secure LGBT equality. I worked on marriage equality here in New York and lobbied the legislators up in Albany. You know, New York was a really important state in the LGBT equality movement because it was the first state that passed marriage through a legislature with a Republican Senate. And it was Republican leadership that allowed that bill to come to a vote. And it was 4 very courageous Republican legislators who voted for marriage equality. And that model in New York, we then were able to export to other states around the country that were states that needed to pass it with Republican support. And so that's where we started. But the truth is, the places where LGBT freedoms are being eroded because of the marriage decision are happening mostly in red states across the country. And so you actually have to build strong alliances of Republicans across the country in order to help secure those freedoms.
Important
and that's
work.
what we do.
So if people want to see, by the way, Fire Line is shot right here.
Right here?
In this studio at the Tisch WNET studio, seen across the nation on public broadcasting, but in our market, WNET and JTV New Jersey, out on the island. Thank you. And you continue to add a great deal to the public broadcasting family.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Love your show.
You got it. Thank you very much. Stay with us. We'll be right back right after this.
To watch more One-on-One with Steve Adubato, find us online and follow us on social media.
Sorry for pointing. Hey, that's Pete Dominic. He's back. That's right. He's a comedian. He's talented. He's smart. He knows politics. You can check him out. Stand Up with Pete Dominic every day, 9 to 12, SiriusXM. How you doing?
It's great to see you. We've become good friends. We have this charisma, this mutual respect, this like for each other.
Like that's legit.
It is. It really is. You come on the radio show. We really get along. We learn from each other. We bust each other's chops. You look great, by the way. You look so handsome as always.
I appreciate that. You look great too. You had a little impingement, but I'm going to leave.
Yeah, I have a neck thing. I'm 43 now. I'm starting to feel things happening, but maybe for another
Trust
conversation.
me.
We should host that show. Men and their impingements as they age.
I tell you about my hip, but it's not about that. It's not about my hip. It's not about your impingement. It's about, Pete, where are we?
Yeah.
Small question. Where are we today in terms of our ability just to have a civil conversation with people that we may disagree with politically? My friends, I know you still watch us on public broadcasting.
Yeah.
Half of them I can't even talk to.
Yeah.
It's not that they like the president. It's that if you question something the president says or does, that's not even political, but mean-spirited, call someone a name, misogynist, they're like, hey, we're doing well.
Right.
And I'm thinking, can we even talk?
Well, there's so many different perspectives for answers on that question. I suppose it depends who you are in terms of how much.
How about if I actually like some of these people and I don't want to lose them as friends? You say?
Right. It's difficult because at this point things become so personal. These issues become so personal. And like you said, a lot of people, they're like, I'm doing well. My family's doing okay. I'm the type of person that while I may think those things, I'm thinking about a whole bunch of other people who I might not know. Well, I'm not trying to be some noble elitist.
No,
but
but
that's
you
the
give
way
a damn.
I think. I do. I care a lot about
You see people on a so-called caravan, people trying to get away from a country they were in, God knows what they were facing. We don't know everyone there, but the reality is there's a part of you, the part of me, doesn't make us better than anyone else. It's like, look at those babies.
Listen, you know what?
Look at those kids.
I would not travel 100 miles in flip-flops for my kids. I wouldn't do it. I don't care enough about them. I'm joking, obviously, but I'm not in that situation. Wouldn't every parent out there do whatever it takes to put their kids in a better situation, especially if they lived in a really violent country, an impoverished nation? And so this has always been a nation that has accepted and welcomed refugees despite the times when we haven't.
Let's
We're
not
not
check the
perfect.
Statue of Liberty.
Exactly. We're not perfect, but all of us have come from somewhere else. That's supposed to be, I thought, what makes America great. And I welcome that. I want those people living next door to me. I want to learn from them. I want their culture. We're different. Things have changed. And I think a lot of that has to do with our media, Steve. I think the idea,
us?
Us. I wouldn't blame politicians and government nearly as much as I would blame media.
Make the case. Make the case.
Well, the idea that ratings are what makes money. And to get ratings, the best way to get ratings on radio and TV especially is to divide people, to have a strong opinion and blame the other side and make it two sides. Guess what? There aren't two sides to every issue.
How many sides are there?
There could be multiple sides, or there can be one side to things like science, like vaccines and climate science. We don't need to debate those. We need to debate the solutions, not the problems. And so media really has divided us, in my opinion, and I think there's a better way to do what you and I do, to get along, to have a nuanced, thoughtful conversation.
Even when we disagree with each other.
Absolutely.
But
You
I
and
don't
I
have to call
disagree.
a lot.
Yeah.
I can't. But what's the deal with me calling you a name? We don't do that. Again, I don't want to make it about Pete or the way I do what we do. I don't get the name calling.
I thought that was something that we did as children and that I do as a comedian on a comedy stage, maybe.
Yes.
But really, I didn't think that adults, I thought there was a baseline. That's part of the problem. I thought we agreed that we don't bully, that we don't name call when we're adults, that we teach our kids not to do that. If there's a kid with some kind of mental issue or physical issue, we teach our kids to welcome that child, to try to understand and welcome diversity, not to make fun and poke fun
Or
and
mock a
isolate
woman's
that kid.
appearance
Of
or her
course.
weight or...
Immutable characteristics I teach my daughters. If you didn't choose to be a woman, you didn't choose to be this color, we didn't choose to age and have impingements, right? These are mutable characteristics. We don't go after those. You chose this job. Okay, let's criticize the job.
Performance.
Right, exactly. And
Why is that such a...
Because it gets ratings, because it gets
I feel like we're in a
people
choir
fired up.
here just talking to each other.
Well, maybe, but we are, I think we're a lot of the problem in terms of categories. We white guys of a certain age, of a certain privilege, I know a lot of people roll their eyes at that phrase, but it's hard to deny.
What are we supposed to do with it?
We are supposed to do with our privilege is open doors for people who didn't have it. Not open door for another guy just like me who's winning. Open the door for somebody else at our work. Offer an internship to this person from this category of life who hasn't had the advantages and the opportunities, who's been historically discriminated against. Help those people because of what we have, what we've gained. We should be able to give that to the next person. Pay it forward, Steve.
I hear you, Pete, and I believe it very much. But for a significant number of folks, who fall into the category you just described,
Sure.
there's not a whole lot of interaction with those who are not, quote unquote, like them. So where would they even have the opportunity to do that unless you sought out the opportunity to be helpful to someone else outside of your neighborhood, outside of your community, outside of your circle, whatever that means?
No, it's a great point. We self-segregate, and it's not just
I'm
like
in suburban New Jersey.
Right.
What
it's not-
diverse are we talking about?
Well, I hear you, but it's not just, the obvious black, white,
No.
or religions.
It's class,
or
it's a lot of stuff,
religions,
right.
or it's class has a tremendous amount to do with it. But I don't know how to instill curiosity and open-mindedness. My parents did that with me, but I grew up in a
Same here.
really where everybody was the same in upstate New York. But I moved to New York City because I was curious about other languages, other cultures, other religions, and certainly other food and music and art. But that's not something you instill. You can't force people to do that. But I try to offer your kids as much as you can in terms of an experience and in terms of trying to create open-mindedness, and you hope that it sticks and that they keep wanting to pursue that.
Tweak this a little bit. The Me Too movement,
Yeah.
a fair number of men, you know who you are saying that one of the offshoots of the Me Too movement is that, you know what? You can, the president said it himself, you could be accused of something you didn't do. It's just someone accuses you. You lose your career in a second.
Yeah.
And it's not fair, and the pendulum has swung too far, quote unquote, the other way, you say?
I say that's absolute nonsense. Are there examples of it? Yes, there are. The idea that there's a him too movement, it really is nonsensical when given the stats. As a matter of fact, the stats about sexual assault, domestic abuse, rape are way higher than what is reported because most women don't even report these. So we know the few examples, aberrations, where a man has been accused of something that he didn't do. And yes, his life was destroyed. And that is terrible, Steve. It's absolutely wrong.
And we need to check against that, but that's a diversion, a distraction from the much larger
Which is
issue that's been going on forever.
Of course it's been going on forever. It's founded in religion. All of our religious texts are patriarchal. Our country, most societies are as well. But what I've been talking about when it comes to this issue, and I've been working on this issue for a long time, and by working on it, I mean learning about it. So what I've been
challenging yourself, by the way.
Yeah, well, sure.
I mean, on your show, when I've been with you, you've challenged yourself, the things that you have said about women, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, I've said some of those same things.
Yeah.
You're challenging of yourself, but of your audience. Therefore, what's the goal there with the men who are listening?
To offer women the empowerment that they've always deserved, the opportunities that they've always deserved, to learn a new way of thinking, a new way of talking, to not create the situations that we live in, the paradigms that we live in, that women have been dealing with for forever in this country and everywhere else, frankly. Some places have more gender equity than others, but now what my message is for men to listen. When all this is unfolded, and we've heard more, especially during the confirmation hearings for Brett Kavanaugh, this conversation that happened, I asked my wife. I knew some things that had happened in her past, but I went back and I asked her, is there anything you never told me? And Steve, she did. She told me of a horrific incident that I never knew about. A coworker, a young woman who I just hired, told me about how she lost her virginity to a rape, Steve. And what's important is that we listen. It's not, people say and believe them, of course, but that we listen. Stop explaining to them how it's supposed to be and start listening to them about how it actually is, the reality of what it is like to be a woman, what it is like to be a person of color. We need to listen, and that's really hard for a lot of us to do, and that's why I'm done talking right now about it.
But as I listen to you right now, it always comes back to this for me with you. With your passion, your conviction, the degree to which you care, not just about your own family and your own financial well-being, but about others. The comedy. How the heck do you find the ability to incorporate comedy into a world you just described that could, for some, go, wow, this is depressing. Where's the comedy?
The comedy actually thrives the most in communities that are the most discriminated against. There's a lot of research and scholarship on this: Holocaust victims, slaves, black folks now, and Jewish folks now. Anybody who's discriminately, been historically discriminated against. And you look at the comedy landscape over the years, you see a lot of famous, successful Jewish comics, black comics, and increasingly women comics. But the bottom line is comedy is so important and so relevant. It's in the conversation, speaking truth to power, doing what traditional mainstream journalists can't do. I came up on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart.
That's right.
I worked there. I worked at the Colbert Report, and I created this radio show that is trying to do something similar to that to fight apathy, to get people interested in issues that they otherwise might not have been in the past by trying to be at least a little bit entertaining, poking fun at what's going on, poking fun at power, and certainly self-deprecating, poking fun at myself.
You always do.
Yeah.
And the time I have left, is it a high priority for you, Pete, in 2020, given everything you said, to be actively involved in using your platform at SiriusXM, by the way, 9 a.m. to 12 noon, listen every day? Is it a priority for you to change the person who is in the White House?
A priority for me to change the person who
Have influence on what happens in 2020 in that regard?
Yeah, I think so, but I don't think that I have that power. I don't think about that much. My priority is to create a conversation, to welcome people from all backgrounds, from all educations, and have a conversation that they can understand, that they can contribute to, and that they can come away from a better person, a more well-rounded individual. That's the priority.
First rule of broadcasting, don't ask a complex question with 25 seconds left.
I did
Thank you,
okay,
my
though.
friend.
I nailed it. I nailed it. Did I nail
You
it?
saw my body language.
I know the
thank you,
game.
Pete.
Good to see you, buddy.
One on One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. This special edition of One on One with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Tisch WNET studios at Lincoln Center. Funding has been provided by Rowan University, Atlantic Health System, New Jersey Sharing Network, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, Keystone Mountain Lakes Regional Council of Carpenters, New Jersey Resources, and by Wells Fargo. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area.
I was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis when I was 2. It's hard to grow up with CF. But I have an awesome care team at Goriab Children's Hospital, helping me do the things I want to do, like play lacrosse. And now I've been recruited to play in college.
Where you go for pediatric care matters.
Atlantic Health System, because every moment is a moment that matters.